Back in 2014, Canada Bay Council released their strategic review of the Canada Bay Bike Plan. This was a follow-up from the first Council Bike Plan, which was initially discussed in late 2003, commenced in early 2004, and finally released in early 2005. The 2014 review included the statement that the Council to consider reconvening a quarterly bicycle planning committee. A consultative committee was established for the creation of the original 2005 plan, but quarterly meetings have never been held. If a committee like this was set up now, what would be its purpose? Why would it exist? I can think of a couple of things, but I'm going to quote the original management guru, Peter Drucker. Drucker certainly did believe that measuring results and performance is crucial to an organisation's effectiveness. Work implies not only that somebody is supposed to do the job, but also accountability, a deadline, and finally, the measurement of results. That is, feedback from results on the work and on the planning process itself. Well, I thought just for fun, I'd go out and have a look at one of the routes which was proposed in the original 2005 plan. Let's start with the SR4 route, as it was called back then, the Parks route. Now, this is a bit complicated to describe it in words here, and there are no maps in the report. So, Google Maps didn't exist back then. So I've drawn up what it looks like here, and actually it looks like there were two routes proposed here. So I've put in the other bit that goes around to Massey Park. I don't really understand where this was supposed to go. Anyway, if we move on to the 2014 report, it actually calls this now the Concord Shared Pathway, although it's not the kind of two-part path that was proposed in the original 2005 plan. Only this bit has been constructed, well, as far as I can see, because there's certainly no safe way to get across to Massey Road. I might go back and have a look at it at a later date. Well, we're going to start this review in Brewer Street, Concord, alongside Edwards Park, and we are going to get into Edwards Park. Now, would I be comfortable riding along here with my kids? No, not really. It's not great. Now, one thing you might want to notice is that there are some pavement markings on the road here and there. There's one of them. But as we come up to where we want to get onto the path, there's the path over there. There is absolutely no pavement marking telling us to turn right here. And the only signage that I could find at this end of the path was this incredibly small, beaten up and crappy sign stuck up on a pole where you'd never see it.
Well, if you ask me, one very clear reason for having a bicycle consultation committee is to provide feedback on existing paths and projects. So, for instance here, there's no ramp coming off the end of this path. You have to go over there to cross the road, and there's no safe crossing of the road. Well, let's check out this path and think about it. Now, at the moment, it seems the way council operates is it writes a plan, and every decade or so it refreshes the plan. And for paths like this one here, which is new and was in the plan, it's all good, the process is council brings in consultants to design the path, and it brings in concreters to build the path, and then it brings in the mayor to open the path, and then that's it, project closed by the look of things. There doesn't seem to be any feedback afterwards, any reviews or consultation to see, well, how well used is this thing actually? Is it fit to purpose? Is it serving its design purpose? Is it meeting the strategic objectives overarching the bicycle plan or the environmental plan or the movement plan or the local whatever the hell plan? Is it actually meeting any of the objectives set down when the project was approved? Now I've got a crossing, hang on.
Well, this is one of the bugbears I've got with all these routes, and that is that if you're with kids, this might as well be the Berlin Wall. These are just impossible to get across if you're trying to shepherd a young family over the road, especially on a busy day.
Well, that would have been unpleasant with kids. Yeah, so you think at the start of a project like this, when it's approved, you'd set down some business objectives, which might be something like, on the weekends when the sport's being played in these parks, we want 30% of families that live within 1 kilometre to walk or ride or scooter or use some form of active transport to get to the sports grounds. Okay, that's a measurable target. And then you go back after the path is built at some point and you actually measure that with surveys or something. When you come down here on a Saturday and you ask people how they got here, etc. You could ask the team managers to do that for you. I used to be one. Pretty easy, got a lot of spare time when you're a manager. games on the weekends. You could even do focus groups down here and say, well, for those of you that drove, why did you drive? If you live within a kilometre, why didn't you use active transport? You get their feedback, and they might say, well, because crossing roads like this with children is just, I don't feel safe doing it. And of course, PA might then go, oh my God, you mean modern parents are hypersensitive to the safety of their children? Who knew? What a surprise. Oh, crikey, my generation grew up with betadine and flavine and mercurochrome, etc., and we seem to be painted with purple, red or brown stuff on various bits of our body on a weekly basis that modern kids, I think, don't know what a graze, scratch or cut is, because they just don't get out like they used to, supposedly. Anyway, does this path work? Well, I gotta say, it's really badly signposted. There's no pavement markings to tell you're on a bike path, and it doesn't use the obvious Perth colouring technique of using red asphalt, so it's clearly a shared path, and you can see from a mile away that, oh, that's maybe a route I can ride a bicycle on, or a route, however you want to pronounce it. But does it actually work? Is anyone using this? And to me, that's what the committee should be looking at on a couple of times a year. I mean, they suggested 4 times a year, but the way I'd have the committee meet is doing exactly what I'm doing now. You get committee members out on some bikes. You go, right, we're going to ride regional route 1 or strategic route 3 or some planned route, and we're going to have a look at it, and then we're going to discuss, does it need some fine tuning? Does it need some wholesale readjustment, or is it fine the way it is? Because these things don't finish when the final concrete is poured and the ribbon is cut. They're built to serve a purpose, and we really need to be asking ourselves, since we paid for these damn things, are they serving that purpose? Are we getting really the maximum value for money out of them? Here comes another crossing. If I was doing a focus group about crossing this with my kids, I'd say, well, no way in hell.
Now, if you don't understand why this is such a terrible crossing to try and get across with a young family, well, the only way you can really see what it's like is to actually come down and experience for yourself with some kids, because trying to get across a 3-way intersection like this with a little island in the middle, oh, deadly.
Now, it's okay for me to do that as a confident adult cyclist, on my own. But would I want to do that with, say, 2 or 3 kids aged 8 to 12? Or not on a weekend, not when the traffic's busy, not at that roundabout. You have to be off your head. And, that's the kind of design stuff that council needs to go back and think about. It's that, well, those are the blockers. Those are the things preventing this thing from actually being a success. And, how do we go and address those things? Anyway, with no committee, there's no feedback. So, council opens the path, Mayor gets his photo in a newsletter or maybe a newspaper. Council gets to, someone gets to go and open up some graphic design software and add another line on the map to say, hey, we've got a bike path here. And everyone pats themselves on the back. But that's really not what we're here for, is it? We're here to make sure these things are actually being used. So if you look at something like the environmental plan the council has, where let's say they want to reduce car usage by 30% over the next 10 years, well, how do you do that? Well, you encourage people to use active transport or public transport. Okay, well, is the active transport component delivering? The answer will probably, when they had a close look, would be no. Well, okay, how are we going to deliver on that strategic environmental objective unless the bike plan's delivering on its objectives? Yeah, as much as I dislike Tony Blair, at least he popularised the idea of joined-up government, because if there's one thing council seems to be very good at, it's being totally and utterly disjointed. And another shocking crossing. I've got the little island out in the middle, but
Well, apparently in ancient times when bridge builders built a bridge, it was the law that the bridge builder and their family had to build a house and live under the bridge for a period of time to, well, make sure it didn't collapse. It gave them a vested interest in making sure it was safe and durable. What I'd really like to see with these new paths when they're opened is that the mayor and the councillors and the senior staff come out here on bikes with their families, that's people in their families aged 8 to 80, during a busy period and ride across them.
now I think, was that a complete route? No, we're still got to go down Stanley Street. Well, we're in Stanley Street now, and we're going to go past the two Concord schools and then through Central Park and St Luke's Park, is it? I don't know.
Well, we're now going past 2 more schools, and here we have a perfect example of where you could take something like the environmental strategy, where you've got these kind of high-level strategies of what you want to do, and break them down into lower-level objectives. And you could say something like, we want no more than 10% of kids being driven by their parents to Concord High School, and the rest should be using active transport or public transport. Well, how do you deliver on that? Well, you provide them with safe, active paths from all directions to get to the school, so they can walk, scooter, skateboard, ride, whatever. It doesn't particularly matter what the breakdown is between public transport and active transport, as long as they're getting out of their cars. And that's how you deliver on the high-level objectives. Now, if we don't get it down into these kind of low-level objectives, then we're never going to be able to deliver on the high-level one.
So what I'm doing now is really about the best consultation in inverted commas we can do. Of course, I can't do inverted commas because I've got one hand on the selfie stick and one hand on the handlebars. Yeah, and this isn't consultation at all. I mean, this is just, this is a one-way communication with no guarantee that there's anyone listening on the other end. And certainly, usually at the end of consultation, there's an agreement usually to take action, or an agreement to take no action. Well, are we going to get that from this? No. It's just you just put it out there, and someone might watch it, and then that's it. It's just into the forgettery, as Kevin Rudd would say. And yeah. Anyway, what was that like as a route? Well, apart from the crossings, it's not too bad. Winds around a bit, like I said, badly signposted, hard to see, hard to find. It's good that it joins up some parks, which is good. You would think that families that live over that way, near Brewer Street or Majors Bay Road shops, if they want to come over here and play netball, well, they should be able to use that, to ride across. I mean, it's pretty safe across there, apart from the road crossings. And this is the kind of stuff I'd expect a consultation committee to be uncovering. Is come out here on a weekend when there's hundreds and hundreds of people here playing netball, and ask around the parents. Well, why are you all parking in that car park I've walked past, or out here on Lyons Road West? Oh, it's too dangerous to ride here. Well, do you know there's a route through the back? Oh no, we never knew that. Oh, why don't you give it a go? And then they come back and go, yeah, we gave it a go. We're back in our car. Crossing those streets was a horror show. Never want to do that again. Scared the hell out of us. Okay, now we know. But at the moment, there's just nothing. There's no questions, so there's no answers. There's no feedback. How do you improve unless you're asking those questions all the time? Well, it's possible you get answers back you don't want to hear. Well, that's just tough.
I'm going to finish up with this very simple management idea of eating your own dog food. And if you don't know what that means, well, I suggest you go and look it up. Now, you might be wondering, who the hell is this bloke? Well, this is Admiral Rickover, and he was the father of the US nuclear submarine fleet. And he probably invented it. He had this very simple rule that when a submarine was built or overhauled, that the managing directors, etc., or chief executives of the contractors that were welding his submarines together and all the rest of it, had to go out on the first trip where they would do a deep dive. And that was the ultimate test to make sure the submarine would actually hold together. So what he was doing was aligning the interests of the management of these companies that were, welding the holes with the Navy. And look, I really think that this is what the consultative committee should be trying to do as well. That is getting the mayor, the councillors, and the senior managers of the council out there on bikes to eat their own dog food. And if they come back and say, well, it's not safe for us to do that, I think there's a serious problem.